The airplane broke right at the waist windows. I was stuck in the tail.
I'm not following you. I mean, I understand break, but what do this is in the
It
air?
just broke, yeah. We don't know what happened. The pilot, the co-pilot, he told me he don't know. He says he looked back there and there was no tail to the airplane.
Well, how did you land?
We didn't.
Oh,
My name is Peter N Godino. I was born in Italy, November 16th, 1921.
when did you come to the United States?
1930. My dad was here in 1905, and he made several trips back and got married and called for us to come back.
So where did you settle in when you first arrived in America?
In a little town called West Manayunk. It's in Pennsylvania. It's in Montgomery County on the city limits of Philadelphia.
Did you speak English?
No.
You spoke Italian.
Yes.
So what was your early schooling like?
Well, in 1 year I jumped 3 grades and learned the language in about 2 years. Real good.
Was there any kind of ridicule for your being Italian from that area?
No,
Did you live in an Italian neighborhood?
not necessarily. No, it was descendants from the Hessians lived there, and it was near Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, so no, we had no prejudice that I remember anyway, not
Yeah.
to my face.
School then, this is during the Depression era.
Yeah.
How was the family situation? I mean, what did you have to do to keep food on the table? Or
Well, we raised a good garden, and we got a hog once a year. We cut corn for a farmer and canned everything, and we got along. Shoveled snow, and whatever I made, I brought home.
why were you interested in joining the Army?
Well, there was a fella that was from my hometown, and he had joined, and he'd come back. He was in the cavalry, so it looked real good to me. And he looked good, and so I figured, well, geez, when I get old enough, I think I'll join the Army too.
So how old were you when you joined the Army?
18.
What was the process? I mean, what did you have to do to get in?
I went to the courthouse in 2nd and Chestnut in Philadelphia, and I applied. And at that time, if there wasn't an opening, you couldn't get in. Somebody had to retire or die. But they were recruiting people to come into the Air Corps, and Army Air Corps, and that's when I went in.
So in 1939, the United States does not get into war until 1941.
Right.
In 1939, this is a different kind of army, and especially Army Air Corps. So
Yeah.
where did you go after you registered, okay, you got signed up and all that, you're 18 years old, where did you go from there?
I went to Bowling Field in Washington, D.C.
Was it a train or a bus did you
Train.
go on? Okay. You're in civilian clothes,
Yes.
you're with a bunch of guys,
Yeah, there was about 7 or 8 of us.
okay. What was that place like?
That's the furthest I'd been away from home. It's only 135 miles. People didn't travel that far in those days. A trip to Atlantic City was something to talk about the rest of the year. But, well, they had a big brick barracks there, and they had started to build wooden barracks. But it was more of a permanent base. And it wasn't crowded. It was very few people there.
You're an inexperienced young kid from a farm. What was the first day there like?
Well, the first day we got basic training, and for the next 2 months or 3 months, we drilled and did the basic training, learned who to salute and who not to salute.
What time did you get up in the morning? What did you eat? All those kind of daily routine kind of things.
Well, the food was the best I've ever seen. I got in line the first day I was there, and I said, "What do they got to eat?" And somebody said, "Pork chops." I said, "What's a pork chop?" Didn't know what a pork chop was. It was like a show place. Congress used to come in there and see how they were feeding the troops. They judged the whole army by what they saw at that base. And you got through with your basic training, then they give you chores to do around well, you went to work on a line. Uh, I used to stoke fires for the hot water heaters for a while, and then I went to work in operations. So there was enough hot water to take showers and things like that. 24 hours on and 48 hours off.
You're literally staying up for 24 hours.
Yeah, well,
Stoking it.
it was our duty. In other words, you could take a nap in between, whatever you wanted to do, as long as your job was done.
So now you move into operations.
Right.
And what was that like?
Well, that was more like a regular civilian job, more or less. You know, the pilots would come in and they'd file a flight plan, and then I would call it in to operations, which was across the Potomac River somewhere. It wasn't very extensive in those days. Didn't have that much commercial flying. I don't think it did.
How many people were working around you?
Well, I'd say about a dozen.
So it's a small group of people, and
Oh,
it's
yes.
a small operation all the way around.
Very small. There wasn't that many planes. We had some B-18s, AT-6s, B-12s even, which were ancient. We didn't have any modern airplanes. We had a P-39 come in, but they were mostly going to Russia, I think, the Bell. And had a P-40.
Really?
But they had a P-35 too, which was a two-wing airplane.
Is this where you started to get the idea that maybe you wanted to fly? I mean, where did that develop from? Where did your
Well, I
desire-
always had an interest in flying, and that was my be as close as I could with airplanes. I didn't have the education to become a pilot, but I did want to be around them anyway.
This period of time, America was divided in terms of whether we wanted to get involved in Europe or not. Were you aware of what was going on in Europe and perhaps even the Japan and China and all that?
Oh yeah, I read I did a lot of reading, and I knew that sooner or later we were going to get into war. It was inevitable. And since we were so closely allied with England, and Churchill was coming over every once in a while to make deals with Roosevelt to ship things over, and they would give us islands, you know, close to us, which we had to give back with the exchange. I think it were destroyers for bases in Bahamas or something.
Now, there was a point in time where Churchill apparently came to your area. Explain what happened
Oh
there.
yeah, I stood honor guard there.
What was it, how did you get in the honor guard, number one, and then what was involved in being?
All of us. We all had to
Oh, okay.
stay, you know, and you know, the whole route as they come into base till they met at the airfield.
Did you know he was coming?
Oh yeah, cold.
It was a cold day.
It was in January, or oh, I think it was February. It's cold, and we had to stand there for 4 hours.
You're in dress uniform?
We had a top coat, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I saw the two leaders meeting and discussing things which we couldn't hear, but then they went off to the White House, I imagine, and discussed it further. But I know the impression was that England was desperate and they needed our help. That's about it. Well, I admired Churchill, but I loved the president. He was the greatest.
Was there a sense of, like, this guy looked different or special, or is you know, they use the word charisma with some leaders. Did you feel anything like that, or did you just see a guy that you recognized because he was the president?
Well, Roosevelt, yeah, he saved his country. He really did. This country was fairly close to a revolution here to a degree, not a physical revolution like guns and things like that, but there was a lot of change going on, and there was a lot of movement, and he saved it. He saved this country twice, once during the Depression and once during the war. Oh, before I got to the operations, I was in charge of the parachutes. We at those days they had $1 a year men, wealthy officers that would come in and get their 4 hours a month, and they'd have to come in and check out a parachute, and I'd give it to them. And then I went into operations after that.
$1 a month? What does that mean?
$1 a year.
$1 a year?
Yeah, well, they were wealthy officers who had made it in civilian life, I imagine, and they'd come in just get their reserve time in.
And what was the reaction you had to the announcement of Pearl Harbor?
Well, I was in operations, and all of a sudden it came over the radio. It was, I think it was about 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning, something like that. I can't remember exactly. And boy, there was quite a, everything was shut down, and restrictions started coming in, and no more civilian clothes. You couldn't go out wearing civilian clothes anymore like we used to. So it was wartime footing. Took over right away.
Some guys I've talked to didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. Did you have any idea where it was?
Oh yeah, I knew where it was because there was some people that served at Hickam Field that were back in the States, and so I knew where Pearl Harbor was. Yeah.
You're a little bit unusual with a lot of the GIs of that time because at 18 years old or whatever, they got into the military. But you'd already been in the military for quite a while.
Yeah.
Did you have any anticipation that it would be Japan, or were you pretty much thinking this is going to be a war with Europe at some point?
Well, at first I thought it was going to be Europe, and eventually we'd have to fight there. And well, not physically, but maybe you know, some sort of help. But Japan, I knew the squeeze was on when they were denied the oil and things like that. There's something had to give, and it was building up for years. And they knew it too. I mean, our government knew it, but it happened. In '42, they started different programs, and they started the glider program. So I didn't have a high school education, so I took an aptitude test and had to get 110 to pass it. So I got 110, and I went on the glider program in 1942. I went to Antigo, Wisconsin. We got primary training in flying. I soloed and flew something like about 70, 80 hours of power flight and about 35 hours of gliding.
Peter, let me ask you something. Was it fun?
The gliders were really, so was the, well, we flew light planes, nothing heavy, Piper Cubs and things like that.
You're finally flying, though.
Oh yeah, and I soloed in 6 hours.
And what was the purpose of this glider program?
Well, to glide, to use it to carry troops. Well, they had trained too many, so about half of them went to reclassification.
What happened to you?
And I went to the gunnery school because I didn't have a high school education. I couldn't get to further pilot training.
And where was that?
That was in Las Vegas, and was there, and then we went to Wendover, Utah.
Okay.
And then I was called, they formed crews there. And
so you're now forming a crew.
Right, we were a member of we were a crew. We had a pilot, co-pilot.
Were you assigned to a particular, I mean, you have this crew, but is it like the 461st?
No, not yet.
Okay, nothing like that.
No.
Okay.
And then we were in Mountain Home just training as a crew. And at that time, the 461st had lost an airplane up in the mountains, and they needed a crew to replace it. So they called there, I guess, and we got on a train and we went to Fresno to train. We didn't know anything until I got to Fresno.
Okay.
And then the rumor was that we were going to Europe.
Okay.
It was big.
Okay.
And we trained there, and we made so many flights, and we'd take boxes out, we'd throw them out in the ocean and shoot them with the guns and things like that.
Give me an idea of the daily routine for this crew. You get up in the morning, probably around, 11 o'clock, you have some coffee,
No, it was
No.
earlier than that. Yeah, it was.
Well, what was the daily routine like?
Well, they only had so many airplanes,
Okay.
and they had more crews than they had airplanes. And since we came there, we didn't have that many. We were without an airplane.
Okay.
So whenever there was an airplane available, our crew got on there, and they, of course, the main thing that they were testing or doing, we already had gunnery practice, was that navigation and bombing, simulated bombings and things like that.
But you're still operating as a functioning crew, either way.
Right.
Okay. It seems to me you're a young kid, you're with a bunch of young kids, you don't have an airplane, you're sitting on the ground waiting for an airplane. Was there a sense of, God, I want to get into that airplane and was there a sense of frustration, or what were you doing on your downtime, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, just waiting.
Yeah.
Just like, hurry up and wait. That's the Army life.
But once you got an airplane,
Yeah.
then you would get on, it
And
would
we-
take off, and then what was happening?
Mostly the pilot, co-pilot, navigator, bombardier, they were the ones that needed the training to operate the airplane. We were just the complement to make the airplane safe. We mounted the guns. And so they're the ones that needed the practice.
Was your confidence building with this crew as you're getting up, or was there a sense of, well, that guy's not
Oh.
that good, or I'm worried about him, or
No, we were like a band of brothers, more or less. Yeah, oh, definitely. We knew each other backwards and forwards. The pilots had so many hours of flying, and that's the way we flew. And one time we went over the ocean, and when we come back, it was all fogged in, and navigator had to find a way to land that airplane to Muroc Lake, which is Edwards now, and that's the type of training I'm talking about.
Okay.
Mostly flying, formation, and things like that.
so by the end of all this, you personally and your crew had at least a confidence that whatever they're going to throw at us, we're going to be ready.
Oh yeah, we were one team.
Okay. Was there communication or socializing with the other crews that were around?
Oh yeah, definitely. We all knew each other.
So there was a camaraderie, if you will,
Oh,
of
absolutely.
this group.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We looked out for each other. That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Team.
So the training is over with. The pilots now have their hours. You're already trained. What happened next?
We went overseas. Well, they told us they put the ground crew and our crew, the only crew that didn't have an airplane, they put us on a train. We went to Camp Patrick Henry in Virginia, got on a Liberty ship, and we were on it for 31 days. We finally got to Italy. The air crew, the ones that had the airplanes, they flew over. And we all went there at the same time.
Liberty ship. Did you get sick?
Never. I'll tell you.
Somebody else did, though.
God. I was sitting on the bottom bunk reading one of those little big books that they gave us, and I was eating a candy bar, and the guy up there pukes right on my candy bar, my arm.
Well, you've been on a boat before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Coming over from Italy.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have the effects of it.
No, I never did get
Okay.
seasick or air sick, either one. Just,
From Italy, I mean, in terms of
Yeah.
being born there, I know you left when you were young and all that, but you're coming back. What was your reaction? What was your feeling when you got to Italy?
no, I had no feeling at all. I'm an American. That was my deal. I assimilated, and I became a citizen, and that's it. We stayed in Naples for about a week, and then we got on the train, and we went all the way across the Adriatic side.
Any idea of what your mission was going to be? Did they reveal that to you at that time?
Well, we knew that we were going to bomb anything within 800 miles or 900 miles. Yeah, we went as far north as Regensburg and Vienna, Budapest, and we went all the way over to Ploesti Air Base, oil field. Ordinary farm, and the airfield was already built. and we set up our tents, and well, 4 men to a tent.
Okay,
Four.
so it's a larger,
The old, pretty good sized tent.
sleeping on cots?
Cots. Well, we got there at the same time the air crews got there, and we didn't have a mission or nothing as yet. We didn't get our first mission until April or May, I think it was April.
So what were you doing in the meantime?
Well, we used to take long hikes, marches, and things like that, and stayed fed. And
So they kept you, the military
yeah.
discipline, and
oh, absolutely.
up in the morning at a certain time, mess.
They had a shower place, and houses were
Mhm.
just barrels that you out in the open.
Showers are the kind of thing where you pull on a chain, there's a big barrel up there dropping
Yeah.
the water down on you or
Yeah.
something?
That's about it.
Wow, wow. There's other crews there that have airplanes,
They could just come there, yeah.
and you guys are no airplanes.
We
What,
had no
what was the
airplanes.
conversation amongst you guys? I mean,
But we flew. We went on the first mission. We went to a town called Niš in Yugoslavia. More like a training mission. It was marshalling yards. We had a bomb, I think it was. And it was
was it a
no
milk run?
opposition.
It's a milk run.
It was just a milk run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know it was going to be a milk run.
No, we didn't know anything. We weren't privy. Well, they tell us, you know. They said, okay, now around this base here that you're going to bomb, there's going to be so many fighters.
So there was a briefing. So there's an officer standing up there.
Officer
he's got a
there,
map.
and he says, well, now that we're going to this marshalling yard, it's not going to be very far. Got to cross the Adriatic, and it's in about the middle of Yugoslavia. So we went, after the briefing was over, we got in trucks, we went to the line, got in our airplanes, formed a formation.
About how many were in the formation?
Oh, we varied from 25, 24, depending on
Okay.
the amount of airplanes were available.
Okay.
Because a lot of them had downtime, you know, change an engine or do something.
Right. There's
Only
only
one runway.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd take off one right after the other. And then we'd form. And that was, we used a lot of gas just forming a formation. Our commander, he had a P-40, and he would take off, and he'd route us up here, get in that formation, get in that middle slot, and then he'd let us go.
It was like herding
Yeah,
sheep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you're in formation. You're heading towards the target.
Right.
Now your job is to man the guns, right?
That's it.
Okay. So
Vision, an area that I had to watch, up, down.
did you have time to think about what you were doing, or you know that this is your first mission? And
No, I was happy. It was an experience. It was something that I wanted to do.
so you go over the target, and what's going on in the airplane itself? Are you hearing them talk? Do you have headphones on? Do you
we had an intercom,
Okay.
and we had, while we're on formation, we all talked to each other. And do you see anything here, you know, or how is it over there? How's the top turret, you know? So we stayed pretty much in contact. Everybody doing okay, you know. Your oxygen mask working, you know. So we kept on each other. And the pilot, this was outside, the pilot would listen to the regular communications. But we would be talking to each other, keeping us alert, not to fall asleep or what.
Was it loud in there? The airplane?
Yeah, just, it's open. It's like 4 engines and a tube. And by the time you get your heated suit on and your sheepskin over that, and you couldn't hardly fit in the turret. I never closed the doors. Turret go this way, I'd be halfway out. But that's.
Well, you have a pretty good eagle-eyed view of the terrain from where you are, though. I
Oh
take it.
yeah, it was like staying in a movie. You know, we used to go to Ploesti, and man, you see that smoke going up 15, 20, 30,000 feet. It's just like watching TV.
I take it you have no fear of heights.
No. No.
I'd be shaking in my boots in that little area.
Well, you get used to it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's just the confidence comes by doing something over and over again.
So that first mission was a success. Was there a sense of you guys getting back, landing back, that you did it? I mean, was there any kind of sense of elation or what? What were you feeling?
Oh
when you
yeah,
got back?
that was the first one, you know, and when are we going to see some action? When are we going to fight her? Everybody wanted to see one.
But were they pretty much routine until you finally got into battle?
I'd
or?
say that half of them were routine, and we didn't see a lot of flac artillery, and that was scary. And but other than the flac, I mean, it was they were pretty accurate with it.
Let's talk
when
about
we
that.
went to Ploesti, we seen fighters on the way back, and we used to go to Vienna, at the oil fields there, and they were lots of fighters there.
Your mission then was really to try and put a stop to the mechanized army of the Germans, the
Yeah.
oil and the gas, to stop them from their ability.
Oil, the main thing was
Yeah.
oil.
And you were aware of it. They told you that's
Oh
what
yeah,
your mission
yeah.
was. Okay.
Without the Ploesti oil fields and the oil fields in Austria, they couldn't go very far. Of course, they made synthetic gas out of coal and things like that. And we did pattern bombing. We didn't do individual bombing.
Okay, what does that mean?
Well, you fly in a formation of V's, and the head bombardier would be in the first plane. He would do the aiming, and we'd take just a section of that target. And when he toggled his bombs, all the other bombardiers toggled theirs, and we took care of that one thing. Another bomb group would come along and do this other thing. And that way, they call it saturation bombing. And we'd fly real close. Sometimes our wingtips would touch. We had one or two cameras in the group that were put in.
But not on your airplane.
Oh, well, we had it one time.
Okay. Oh, they would vary them?
Yeah, they rotated.
Oh, I didn't
So
know that.
you didn't know what airplane you were going to be flying the next day, because the guys would be getting shot, and they would come back, and they'd have another one to replace him, and you know, guys would the rotation would come along. But we'd lose airplanes too, you know, on the ground, and had to cannibalize some. We had to go get more airplanes and things like that. But so we weren't always full strength.
What point that you can recall was when you
We-
suddenly realized, whoa, wait a minute, this is my life?
Yeah, we had a lot of anti-aircraft, which is flac, and it knocked out our nose wheel, and that I got hit in the foot with a piece of shrapnel. So when we landed we dropped our skid in the back of the airplane, and we skidded along, and we just barely made it off. So all they had to do was put a nose wheel on it, and they took off the next day.
While you're skidding along there,
well,
what's going through your head? I mean, come
Well,
on.
we had to throw out a lot of our guns and things like that, because we had to make the front of the airplane lighter and make the back of it heavy, so it'd stay on its tail.
And that kind of danger. It's hard to imagine that a young man of your age there isn't thinking, what are we going to do? You guys all had your job to do.
Oh yeah,
And so when you said, just take the stuff out and put it in the back there, because you just did it.
right.
But when
No
you're
question.
skidding, Peter, you got to be thinking,
Well,
are we going to make it or what?
Oh, we knew we were going to make it. We all
Oh.
huddled back together except the pilot, and everybody was in the back, and we had all the weight in the back. And we
You
didn't
had
lose
that
air.
much confidence in that pilot? And
Oh
that,
yeah, yeah. Oh, like I say, we were together for almost 2 years.
So, your foot, was it badly damaged?
No,
Okay.
no, it just did hardly penetrate, but it went in.
Still hurt.
Oh yeah.
So what happened when somebody got hurt like that? What happened? What did you do?
Well, they grounded me for about 4 or 5 missions, and
Were you in a hospital or
no, we had a little place in the camp.
like a tent? Kind of
Well, it was a
medical
tent. Yeah, medical tent. I just stayed off the foot for a while.
Would the more serious ones, of course, were sent somewhere else? Right?
Yeah, they were sent to Bari or Naples, 2 big hospitals.
Now, you're up there in the air and you're getting a lot of flack, and you're in a bird's eye view, if you will. Did you see any of the other aircraft get hit?
Oh, every day. We lost quite a few. I think I never counted, but there was at least 300 or 400 POWs. Now they had to be in an airplane that got shot down. I mean, you don't just throw up your hands. You're in the middle of a hostile country.
When you were flying in formation, did you have any idea of the people who, I mean, not just that there were guys over there, but did you know who was in the airplanes?
Oh yeah, all the ones in our group.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So if you were looking off to your right and you saw that, you knew that Joe or John or
Right,
whoever you just
yeah.
had breakfast with or whatever.
Right. And he'd get hit, he'd go out, and we'd count the parachutes. When we come back, we'd tell how many parachutes got out and who it was. Sometimes we'd know because of the side of the airplane they got out of.
There's a few times when you counted the
Oh yeah.
parachutes and it
there
wasn't
was
the number
none.
that was supposed to be there.
Right. Quite a few times.
Soldiers that I've talked to, in the air and on the ground, there was a sense of, you see that happening, but it won't happen to you. Was there any sense of that with you? I mean,
Absolutely. I'm going to get through this. And without that confidence, you couldn't exist. Then you lose your God.
when you got back down and the other airplanes are coming in, was there a moment amongst yourselves where, and I'm asking you to go deep inside of yourself here, where a sense of maybe just a moment of silence, if you will, knowing that some guys you knew didn't get back?
Oh,
Was there
yeah,
any?
definitely. Yeah, there was. You feel sad, but you're there for a purpose, and you had to keep going.
Morale overall of the group?
Excellent, excellent. Never deteriorated. Matter of fact, a lot of the ground crew wanted to go fly, so it was that type of go. That we got to win.
What was the relationship between the ground crew and you guys?
Oh, that was the best.
You know, I've talked to fighter pilots, and one of the things that I find so humorous is that, I'll ask the fighter pilot, who owned the airplane? They said, ground crew.
Oh yeah. Matter of fact, one of the crew chiefs was a fellow from my hometown, and we met after the war.
When you came back with an airplane all shot up, did they give you a razzing and say, hey, what's the story here? I gotta go fix this thing now.
No,
Yeah?
I used to, you have to keep firing your gun every once in a while because at that temperature up, it's about 50 below zero at 25,000 feet. And if you don't you shoot a couple of rounds at about every 10 minutes or so, then they might freeze up on you.
Oh.
Even with no oil, they got to be quite clean.
Wow.
But a lot of moisture when you're going through a cloud or something gets on them.
Mostly it's flak you were dealing with.
Yeah.
When was the first time you actually had to deal with fighters?
Ploesti,
There was Ploesti.
they followed us in. We never, at that twice, they never come that close because there was only one and we were a pretty tight formation. If there was a straggler, a guy whose engine 1 inch bad, if he lagged back two plane lanes, he was dead. He had no protection, but we kept real close.
These guys are almost like vultures waiting for a week.
Yeah,
and then boom,
as
they
soon
go
as
down.
one gets out,
Yeah.
they'd tag him, and they'd get him every time.
Get a chance to shoot at one of them?
Oh yeah.
So fast.
It's so fast that if you don't have that split second, you lose it. You come down that way, and before you know it, he's gone.
You get any of them?
The last mission that I was on, I shot at a bunch of them. But they had 20 millimeters, and they locked back behind us. My tracers just flopped. Couldn't touch them. And they had 20 millimeters, and they shot 13 of us down.
Was there ever an experience where you guys got shot up really badly?
Yeah, that last one.
The last one?
Yeah.
Was that the most intense battle you were in?
Well, yeah. Yeah, the airplane broke right at the waist windows. I was stuck in the tail.
I'm not following you. I mean, I understand break, but what do you this is in
It
the
just
air?
broke, yeah. We don't know what happened. the pilot, the co-pilot, he told me he don't know. He says he looked back there and there was no tail in the airplane.
Well, how did you land?
We didn't.
Oh, well then what happened?
Well, I looked it back and there was no airplane. So I reached for a parachute. It was still there, because you can't wear a parachute inside the turret. I put one hook on him. Before I knew it, I was sucked out. And that day we lost 7 of the crew. They got killed. Only 3 got out.
Where'd you land?
In Austria.
Well, you got sucked out.
Yeah.
Okay, and did you then put the parachute on as you're dropping? Is that how?
No, I picked up the parachute
Yeah.
with my hand.
Yeah.
I turned around. I was going to put the hooks on,
Yeah.
because you wear a chest chute. I put on one hook, and I was sucked out. I was just lucky.
So how did the parachute open?
Yeah, it opened after I pulled the ripcord, but I was sideways going.
Sideways
Yeah.
going down. Wow.
Yeah.
Did you maneuver yourself? I mean, I'm picturing
You can't.
You can't.
Not with one hook on. I couldn't raise my arm because my hand were all shot up.
This is the last mission.
Yeah.
This is the one where you were shooting and the tracers were missing all those
Right.
guys. And then what happened? I mean, you guys got shot up in such a way that
Yeah.
the back end breaks off.
Well, yeah, then one airplane was falling and another. And we lost 13. And 2 on their landing.
So you're lopsided in the air with one hook onto your parachute. The parachute opens. Were you falling quickly, or did you land?
Oh, it took a little while. Yeah, I was at maybe about 18,000 feet.
Were you able to? What were you doing? I mean, were you looking around, or you just looking down, or how?
As I was coming down, I seen a P-38 following a German Focke-Wulf, just following him down, and I lost track of him.
And then you hit.
Well, I hit the ground. I couldn't walk. I was all shot up, and so I just laid there waiting for somebody. I couldn't get up. I couldn't. My leg was all cut up, and so I had a shoulder holster. I got rid of the gun, because if they come after me and had a gun on me, they'd probably shoot first.
Yeah. So you were actually shot up in the airplane.
Yeah.
With actual bullets or shrapnel?
Bullets. Well, the 20 millimeters that
Right.
hit the plane, they just exploded.
And so your right arm,
Leg, my hand, my side.
and this is before you actually hit the ground. You were already
I was
bleeding.
already, yeah.
Was there a sense of, this is it, it's over with?
Yeah, a lot of people tell you stories, and my story was, I said, I gotta pass out before I hit the ground. That's before I got out of the turret. I said, I can't hit the ground. Just the feeling, that's what came in my mind. Just a thought. I gotta pass out before I hit the ground. And that's before I bailed out.
But you didn't pass out.
No.
Yeah. So you're laying on the ground, you're bleeding. You were able to finally get rid of the gun. What happened next?
An old man came by. I was in the woods, forest. And he came back about an hour later with 3 other guys, and they put me on a blanket. Each one carried a corner of the blanket and carried me in.
Obviously, these weren't German soldiers.
No, they
so
were
you
civilians.
knew that they were civilians.
Yeah, they took me to a place called Madhausen, which is a concentration camp in Germany. In Austria. It's the largest concentration camp in Austria.